Say hello to a brand new Trek Madone SLR, the 8th generation race bike from the US company. And in a surprising move, they've discontinued the Emonda SLR, merging its aero bike and its lightweight bike into a single bike. And it's a move that reminds me of Specialized when they did the same with the Venge and the Tarmac. And last month I had the opportunity to attend the launch event in Spain and spent a few days riding the brand new bike around the amazing roads southwest of Madrid. But before I share my first ride impressions and how it compares to other bikes in the category, let's dive into all the changes, and we'll also hear directly from the engineer behind the brand new Madone to get an inside look at what makes this bike so special. And yes, the distinctive hole in the seat post is still a standout feature of the brand new bike. What's new then? Well, the Trek Madone first launched way back in 2003, and it was then Trek's go-to race bike, and started life as a lightweight carbon race bike which became increasingly aerodynamic. So much so that in 2014 they launched the Emonda as a pure climbing lightweight bike, and lightweight it definitely was. And now, 10 years after that launch, Trek is back with just a Madone as its go-to race bike. So we've gone full circle back to how the Madone used to be, and realising they can make it a bike that is both aerodynamic and lightweight, as is fast becoming a trend in the road cycling market at the moment.
The primary storyline is, if you're coming from a previous Emonda, the new bike is just as light as the previous Emonda, but dramatically faster aerodynamically. And if you're coming from the previous Madone, the new bike is just as fast, but dramatically lighter. And so we really think of it as sort of the best of both worlds, the best of the Emonda, the best of the Madone combined together into one brand new Gen 8 Madone.
For people who love the Emonda, they'd be sad to see it go on from the range, I guess?
Again, from our perspective, we're trying to optimize the performance of all of our riders, and we see the Emonda as a high-performance road race bike, and we're really not giving anything up from a ride experience compared to the previous Emonda. The bike is still very comfortable, the geometry is very similar, the handling, all those characteristics, and again, the weight is as light or even lighter if you're comparing a Madone SL to an Emonda SL. And so from that perspective, we're sort of maintaining all the attributes that made an Emonda great and improving upon it, which those primary improvements are on the aerodynamic side of things. And we generally think that every rider likes to go fast, and so the benefit of aerodynamics and allowing our riders to go faster on the new Madone we see as a really big benefit.
So we started R&D on this. The R&D timeline for us is really long. So we actually started R&D on this back in 2021. And at that point, it was actually R&D working towards the next generation Emonda. And I think as Jordan chatted about a little bit, but there were some learnings when doing R&D for the Emonda, such as the new tube shapes, that sort of made us realize, like, hey, like we can make a super light bike also really fast. And that's sort of when it transitioned into the new Madone project.
So you actually started working on the Emonda?
Yeah, and so the Emonda was getting, staying super light but getting so fast, and the Madone had been cutting weight, so they just kind of merged into one, and it made more sense to make a really big improvement on the Emonda and a big improvement on the Madone rather than sort of incremental improvements on both. I would also say that there's a ton of sort of ongoing R&D that we're always doing, even if it's not specifically related to one product. So, for example, on this, I think we chatted about the one-piece fork. So the fork has a new molding technology that results in this super lightweight design. And that was actually something that we worked on using a steel tool from a previous bike. So even before we had tooling for this bike, we were developing material and process technology that could apply to this. Same thing with the new bladder technology. That was something we actually worked on with an older tool from the Gen 7 Madone that enabled not only better molding, but also some particular areas like the IsoFlow. It enabled us to mold that in a way more efficient manner, so we could save a bunch of weight in this area and also get better compliance.
That must be a tricky area to manage.
Right, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so it was quite a challenge to get right on the Gen 7 Madone, and then we made a ton of improvements in the way it's molded for this go-round. So certainly the goals were lofty and it was intimidating, but there's all the bits and pieces being developed simultaneously that then in the end come together to this.
Firstly, the IsoFlow, the hole in the seat tube remains on the new bike, and they claim, not mine, it offers a massive 80% increase in vertical compliance over the old Madone and 24% more than the old Emonda, while also leading to weight and stiffness improvements.
We tried out a bunch of different concepts for this area of the bikes. We call it the seat cluster, where the sort of seat stays merge with the top tube, merge with the seat tube. And we looked at different stay designs, and then also a whole bunch of different ways of designing this IsoFlow area in particular. Even with this traditional sort of morphology, we tried different sizes of IsoFlow, and this was sort of selected as the best option. We even had a prototype tool where we had a few different variants of exactly how this bridge comes together. We had one where it was flat and then a different V shape to try that out. This sort of ended up being the best balance of comfort, so the compliance that you get through the seat mast, and then also structurally the way the seat stays blend into the top tube for sort of torsional rigidity of the frame, and aerodynamically it works really well. And then that new, the new OCLV 900 process again enables a lot of weight savings in this area. So overall, I would say it's it's the same technology and sort of getting the same fundamental ideas, but a pretty big step up in achieved performance.
When it first appeared on the Gen 7, there are lots of people speculating perhaps they might not be very sound from a structural point of view.
Yeah, okay.
It's been like 2-3 years now since they've been out.
Right.
You've had no issues?
No, I mean, yeah, like that bike has been ridden in some really tough circumstances. Like the riders have ridden it on Roubaix, and we have tried to break it. If you see this thing go through a test lab, like some of the loads we put through it, you're like, for sure this thing is going to break, and it's totally fine. So I've tried and we can't break it. And
even leaving those claims to one side for a moment, since the Madone launched 2 or 3 years ago, it definitely a look that grown on me and one I quite like the look of. And if I copied the Top Gear cool wall, this bike would definitely be in the cool section without a doubt. A key feature is still the IsoFlow from the Gen 7. It looks a bit smaller visually, but still a key feature. It's not a gimmick, it's there for a reason.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we looked at all the different iterations of how you can make a seat cluster essentially, whether it's drop stays or traditional stays or IsoFlow or lots of different variants of IsoFlow. And at the end of the day, we concluded that this is really the best way of having those tubes sort of create a junction and optimizes aerodynamics, weight, and compliance all together. So for sure, visually it's a differentiating feature on the frame, but there's some really significant performance advantages over sort of any other way of you being able to solve the problem in that area of the bike.
So let's talk weight, and Trek is claiming 796 grams for a size 56 painted frame, and that is a whopping 370 grams lighter than the old Madone, but heavier than the Emonda at just under 700 grams. The fork is also lighter as well, down to 350 grams. Now Trek says it achieves this weight improvement by using a new top-level carbon fibre layup they call OCLV 900, which doesn't give much detail about the actual carbon fibre, but higher grade than is offered on a previous Madone. There's also a new manufacturing process with a bladder that's the same shape as the frame to avoid wrinkles and imperfections on the inside of the surface of the frame to save weight and improve the integrity of the frame. And the fork is also moulded as a single piece as well. These improvements also make it the stiffest bike Trek has ever made as well. Now, frame weights are one thing, but complete bikes are what really matter. And Trek claims an SLR 9 with SRAM red axis in a size ML weighs 7 kilos. But, as this video shows, I weighed the actual bike I rode, a size ML with SRAM red axis, with no bottles or pedals or computer fitted, and it weighed 7.34 kilograms on the Park Tool scales, which is frankly a bit disappointing and a bit strange how such a difference between the claim weight and the actual weight. So it raises the question of whether the new Madone is light enough, and honestly, I don't think it is. It's about the same weight as the old Madone I reviewed here on the channel about 2 years ago. And even taking the claim weight, it's heavier than a Specialized Tarmac SL and the new Pinarello Dogma F, two other all-rounders trying to be aero and lightweight. And heck, it's even heavier than a giant Propel Advanced SL, a pure aero race bike. Now, I do like what Trek is trying to do here. It makes choice for us consumers and pro athletes much easier. And one bike that works well everywhere, climbing, sprinting, you name it, it works well in all scenarios. But really, it needs to be lighter for those people who do value weight, and that is a lot of people. And for people who do focus on weight as a priority when choosing or building a new bike, that opportunity to build a 6.7, 6.8 kilo bike, as you could with the old Emonda, is gone with a new Madone. But weight isn't everything, not for the pros racing especially, because it's all about aero these days, right? Now, you might expect the new bike to be more aero than the old Madone, but Trek told me the aero performance is actually the same as the previous generation Madone. So rather than making it more aero, they focused on making the Madone lighter and trying to offer that one bike that's both aero and lightweight. And it's fair to say that aero bikes are definitely hitting a plateau right now. We've seen very small incremental improvements from the new Specialized and the new Pinarello and the new Colnago and others. There's no real big sort of radical leap forward at the moment. So focusing on weight loss instead is no bad thing, given how modern bikes have definitely put on weight in the last 10 years. And while the aero performance of the new bike is about the same as the old bike, there are in fact all new tube shapes and cross sections and a new handlebar and brand new aero water bottles, which apparently save 3 watts on their own. But don't worry, normal round bottles can be used in the cages if you prefer. And we've seen aero bottles on the Super 6 Evo from Cannondale, and other companies like BMC and Giant also do aero water bottle cages. So really the most marginal of marginal gains. Much of the aero of a race bike comes from the rider, the lump on top of it, and the frontal surface area. So the handlebar is very narrow, like in the old Madone, and the drops are 3 centimeters wider than the hoods. And this alone provides a generous 15 watt drag reduction, which is very nice indeed, partly because it brings your shoulders and arms much closer together for a smaller cross section, so you're punching a smaller hole through the air. Right, time for some aero claims, and Trek is claiming the new Madone saves 13 watts over the old Emonda at 22 miles per hour, 43 watts at 34 miles per hour, and a massive 74 watts at 40 miles per hour, which shows how bad the Emonda was on the aero front. Some other key details that definitely get a nod of approval from me is a T47 threaded bottom bracket, and they've adopted a SRAM UDH hanger. And Trek has also made all the headset bearings across the entire road bike range the same, with the same upper and lower headset bearing diameter. Another quite important change includes revised geometry, with sizes down from 8 to 6, with less overlap between different sizes. A 52 and 54 used to be quite close, so now it's a wider size range despite fewer sizes to make choosing the right size bike easier. There's also the same H1.5 slam geometry, typical of a race bike. Trek is offering the new Madone in 8 builds, starting with the SL, which has a lower grade of carbon fibre, but all the other features are the same. And prices in this range start from $3,500, which is pretty good, and go up to $6,400 in the SL range. Move up to the SLR range with a lighter carbon frame, and prices start for a more eye-watering $9,000 and go up to $13,500 for the model I was riding. And if you're feeling really flush, you won the lottery, there is a Project One Interstellar finish which costs $17,000 because the paint finish on the frame is crazy time consuming. There's also a frame set option with the SL costing $3,800 and the SLR $6,000. I'll put all prices down below and check the region website where you live for prices in your currency, sterling, euro, dollars, whatever it is. So I was very lucky to ride a top of the range model with all the best kit, and very nice it was indeed, but not very attainable for most cyclists, especially myself. So I have plans to bring you a review of the SL6 very soon, right here on Just Ride Bikes, which I think looks a real sweet spot in the range. Probably 98% of the performance of the top end model, a bit heavier, but as aero, that should be a good bike. So make sure you don't miss that review by hitting that subscribe button down below. Right, here we are, day 2 of riding the new Trek Madone. Yesterday was quite cloudy. Today, this morning, it's much sunnier. I'm riding a lovely climb from the hotel. And the riding here, I've got to say, is spectacular. We're about an hour and a half drive from Madrid. I'll drop a link to a location down below. And the landscape here is really, really pretty. quite rugged, craggy, quite rolling hills up to about 1400 meters. Lovely smooth tarmac. For the most part, there are some rougher roads for testing the compliance of the bike, but the road we're on now is a lovely, lovely switchback climb. So this new bike does remind me of the Madone. It feels like a lightweight Madone rather than a more aero Emonda. And honestly, if I was blindfolded, which I don't recommend, I would probably think I was on the old Madone because it feels more Madone than Emonda. But that's largely down to the handlebar, which is very similar to the one on the old Madone. Very striking shape and geometry of the handlebar compared to a regular handlebar on the Emonda. And when you're smashing along the flat roads, crouched down on the handlebars, that narrow hood position definitely puts you in a nice, efficient aero position and does feel good. And in the drops, a bit more flair. So when you're descending, you've got more control, more leverage through the steering, and it works really well. That combination of narrow and aero on the top, and then wide for descending capability on the descent works really well. And compared to the Dogma F, the Madone feels much nicer when you're riding out of the saddle. On a steep gradient, you're on the hoods, really giving the bike some power, giving it some welly through the pedals, and the Madone feels much better. The front end doesn't flop from side to side when you're riding out of the saddle, as the Dogma F did when I was riding it in the Dolomites 2 weeks ago. And generally, over 2 days of riding, the ride performance isn't dissimilar to the old Madone. It's clearly a stiff bike. When I was sprinting or closing a gap, the Madone responded very sharply indeed. And I would say it feels stiffer than the Tarmac, the SL8, but not quite as stiff as a Dogma. So somewhere in between those two bikes in my experience so far. Now, the roads southwest of Madrid were, for the most part, very smooth indeed. But when we encountered some broken tarmac, the Madone handled the jolts and bumps very well indeed. But I reserve judgment on the compliance, which they claim is up a massive 80%, until I ride a bike on my local roads, which is definitely a lot rougher and coarser than the roads around Madrid. Right, let's see how the bike descends. This is heaven, absolutely cycling paradise. It's like the equivalent of a perfect single track mountain bike trail. Curving, flowing, darting left and right. The camber in the corners lets you carry a lot more speed. Look at the view. Look at the view. What a view. Absolutely breathtaking. Spain, what a place. So I gotta get a picture.
I thought of the same picture.
So 2 days of riding on the new Madone, only short rides, enough for a first impression, and I really want to see how the bike compares to the Tarmac SL8. I think that is a comparison we all want to see. I do anyway. Trek Madone versus Specialized Tarmac. King of the lightweight aero all-rounders. The riding here in this part of Spain, I'll drop a link to the location down below. It's stunning. Amazing roads, lovely climbs, fantastic descents. And the bike is perfect on this sort of rolling terrain with quite a lot of climbing, long climbs, punchy climbs, and some sweet descents. It definitely feels as fast as the Gen 7 Madone. That was a very rapid bike in my testing, one of the quickest aero bikes I've ridden so far, and it feels as fast, so I can't believe their claims is as aero. And that slight hint of extra stiffness, when you attack a climb out of the saddle, it really does go like the absolute clappers. A lot of fun. If I was racing, it'd definitely be a bike on my shortlist. But this, or a Specialized Tarmac SL8? That's an interesting question. And it is fascinating to see another company, a big company, follow in the footsteps of Specialized and consolidate their range by merging two bike models into one. So rather than offering more choice, as we're used to, more segmentation of products and categories of bikes, we have a reduction. And for the pros, the riders and mechanics, it makes a lot of sense. One bike, they can race in the Tour of Flanders and Paris-Roubaix and the big mountain climbs and sprint finishes as well. And for us amateurs, consumers, expected to buy bikes, well, there's no decision between aero and lightweight as there is right now. You have one bike that does it all really well. So new Madone SLR aims to be lightweight and aerodynamic, but isn't as lightweight as its key rivals, which on first impression makes it hard to recommend over a Specialized or a Pinarello, or even a Colnago V4 RS, or even a pure aero bike like a Giant Propel Advanced SL. But the ride performance, the ride quality, the stiffness, the speed are all present and correct and very similar to the old Madone. But further testing is definitely needed on more familiar roads to really get a better understanding of the improvements, especially in compliance, for that real world comfort we all crave for my race bikes. But it definitely feels smoother than a Dogma, somewhere closer to a Tarmac, but definitely more testing, more riding is needed, hopefully in the near future. So you want to find out more about the new Trek Madone SLR, I'll put a link to the website down below. And if you want to see a review of the old Madone to remind yourself what that bike was all about, then watch the video right up here. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, you want to see content like this on a regular basis, make sure you hit that subscribe button down there. And you can also join the channel as well for a small monthly fee and support me making videos like this on a regular basis. That link is down below. And do you think they leave any space for I know the Emonda is like dead, that's probably a bit strong term. I guess it could return in the future if you find a way to make it even lighter, or do you think this sets a template for the next 10 years in terms of aero and lightweight, and try and make this bike lighter rather than another lightweight platform like a Specialized perhaps?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think at this point we think that this is the best option for the market, the rider and the team. We're always learning stuff, just as we did with this. I think that if you, say 3 years ago, had proposed merging the two systems, we would have said, no, that's going to be a big compromise. So we're always doing R&D and we'll see what we learn. But for now, this is what we think is the best.